All right, everybody probably knows you, Tom Hannifan from wrestling, but now you're with Believe Sports Network covering football all over the country. How's that change going for you?
I'm loving it. I'm getting to do a little bit of everything. Impact Wrestling is rocking and rolling right now. You can check us out every Thursday night on Access TV. But one of my all-time favorite things is following college football, following the NFL as well. So I'm excited. Everything after the NFL draft, all around the league, there's so much to talk about, and especially the Carolina Panthers. They had a really, really good outing in the draft.
All right, well, let's start right there. Bryce Young, is this the right pick? Was he the best quarterback in the draft, and is he going to work out?
I think he and Chris. I think he and C.J. Stroud were the two best quarterbacks in the draft, and it just depended on who you liked better. I think that Frank Reich knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to quarterbacks. He's proven that time and time again. So I think Bryce Young from the neck up is the best quarterback in this draft, and that's why he went number one overall and why Carolina moved heaven and earth to get him. I, like everybody else, am going to raise the unfortunately obvious question of his size and durability. He's listed at 5'10", 204. He's probably going to play closer to around 195. His measurables physically are the same as when Johnny Manziel was drafted back in 2014. So durability should be a concern. However, his character, his ability on the field, his production are unquestioned. I look at what has unfortunately unraveled with his former Alabama teammate, Tua Tagovailoa, and there's concern. Tua is a more compact version of Bryce Young. However, Bryce is an incredibly intelligent guy, doesn't need to be a runner, but is athletic enough to do it. And I think with the array of weapons that he's inheriting in Carolina, what was already a really good offensive line, Bryce Young's in a really good place to succeed, again, with Frank Reich leading the way.
It's going to be interesting because I thought he was no doubt the best quarterback in the draft, but he's no longer compared to C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson or any of these guys. It's now like, where do you fall in the NFL? Do you think he has enough, and do you think this team has enough as it sits right now to win the NFC South? It's a weaker division, but I do think that some of the teams have made, the Falcons in particular, have made some moves to be competitive, whereas, a couple months ago, it was like, it could be anybody's division.
Yeah, I still worry about the Falcons offensively. It's going to be a prove-it year for Desmond Ridder, the former Cincinnati quarterback. So I'm curious to see how that goes. Getting Bijan Robinson helps them. They've got some weapons in London and Pitts. I still want to see what they do with their offensive line and maybe rounding out that receiving core. Defensively, Atlanta got bolstered in the draft, and they were already the ninth best defense in the league last season. Carolina, the fourth best defense last season. I think they did a lot to solidify their starting 11 going into this coming season. Tampa Bay, I think it's going to be a really rough year. Baker Mayfield at the helm does not inspire a lot of confidence. I think defensively they got better in the draft, and they had a good defensive nucleus already. So I think they'll be able to stop some people, but expect some leather helmet, low-scoring football games from them. And then the Saints, it's just what is Derek Carr ultimately going to wind up to be? Is this going to be a high-scoring offense with a defense that struggles to stop anybody, and they get into a lot of shootouts? So frankly, just looking at everything after the draft, being realistic, there's a very good chance the Carolina Panthers win the NFC South. I could see them coming in second potentially to the New Orleans Saints, and then you're maybe vying for a wild card spot. But how many Carolina Panthers fans would have expected playoff contention going into the 2023 season? I'd say not too many.
So I'm very interested with this offense. Like, how much can Frank Reich and Thomas Brown do because of the weapons? Miles Sanders comes in, biggest name on that offensive side of the ball. You still have a rookie quarterback. Jonathan Mingo comes in, still a rookie wide receiver. You have a bunch of unproven guys with DJ Shark, and he stay on the field all season long. Adam Thielen getting a little bit older. I'm a little worried about the offense. What says you?
I'm here to say don't be worried, because I like that this isn't an offense like, for instance, the Minnesota Vikings, where it's Justin Jefferson versus the world. I like that it's an array of weapons. And then also Jonathan Mingo's being added to what is already a pretty large in size wide receiver core. Let's not forget about Chenault and Marshall Jr. There's some big dudes that are 6'1", 6'2", 210, 220 pounds. Good luck tackling those guys on a regular basis. I heard from Carolina Panther legend Steve Smith Sr. that he compared Jonathan Mingo to Eric Mould, former wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. I would compare him physically in stature to a Carolina Panther legend in Muhsin Muhammad. Moose, similar size, probably a little bit faster than Moose was, ran a 4.4, so that's encouraging, but the production wasn't necessarily there at Ole Miss to make you think he's absolutely a lock at number one wide receiver. And I think that's the beauty of this situation is that Adam Thielen, I expect to kind of be the old grizzled veteran to lead the way and probably be your de facto number one wide receiver. But you've got some nice pieces there in the slot in terms of what Shi Smith is going to be able to give you. I think the departure of DJ Moore is certainly going to be missed. But when you look at this on a grade from like A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever, I give him a B. I like this receiving core, and I think that's a good thing for Bryce Young. You know what you're getting with Miles Sanders, with Chuba Hubbard in the backfield. This is an offensive line that was already good, has some depth issues. You could use a right tackle that you feel a little bit better about. But this offense, to me, shows a lot of diversity. And I think that's great for Bryce Young because it's not an offense where he's going to be locked into one or two guys. You have to cover all of these wide receivers and all of these running backs if you're an opposing defense.
And as a football nerd, I cannot wait to see how they get these guys in open space. It's going to be fun to watch because the last couple of years there was not a whole lot of creativity on the offensive side of the ball. Let's go defense. They signed Derek Brown to his fifth-year option today, and a no-brainer. They signed, I think, the biggest move in the offseason was Von Bell, bringing him in, allowing Jeremy Chin to move around a little bit. But they draft DJ Johnson off the edge. Some people say that they reached. They got Brian Burns. They got to get to the quarterback more than they did. Yetur Gross-Matos, you know him from Penn State. What do you see on this defensive side of the ball, and can DJ Johnson contribute, and can Yetur contribute finally?
Yeah, I don't know about Yetur. I think Gross-Matos might not be long for the Carolina Panthers. And I'm not saying he gets cut during training camp. He might play out the rest of the season, but I believe he has 8.5 sacks as a pro. Yep. That's not going to cut it, especially in a 3-4 defensive alignment. This adjustment, I think, is great for the personnel that the Carolina Panthers have. I like Brown. I like Tuttle. I like Deshaun Williams as those front three. But then you got to get something out of those edge rushers. You like Brian Burns, and you know exactly what he's capable of, and he's probably about to get paid substantially here in the near future. Shaq Thompson, Frankie Louvu are really good at the interior spots. And hell, Louvu had 7 sacks last year, so I almost like him better rotating at outside linebacker than I do necessarily Yetur Gross-Matos. So, and I think there's still a lot of undrafted free agents that are available and also free agent veterans that you really, really like. Look at Leonard Floyd. Frank Clark is still out there. There are some good outside linebackers that can at least come in for a season, be that veteran, and maybe that's what a guy like Gross-Matos needs. But I really like this front seven overall for the Carolina Panthers. And then you mentioned the secondary. Jamie Robinson out of Florida State is a dude. You already have seen J.C. Horn going off about him on social media. He did a lot of really positive things for that Seminole team that was on the rise last year, all ACC selection. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. You mentioned Von Bell. You add him with Xavier Woods. Dante Jackson banged up last season. J.C. Horn looked good in his rookie year. You'd like to see a little bit more depth. I think Robinson helps in that department. I'm not sold on C.J. Henderson. I do not expect him to get a fifth-year option, but at least he's a guy you're having in there as a third, fourth, maybe fifth defensive back. And that's what the modern-day NFL is. If you're going to have a plethora of wide receivers out there, you got to be able to rotate in a lot of fresh bodies in the defensive backfield.
Yeah, the Panthers made that official, by the way. C.J. Henderson not getting that fifth year. You just can't trust him, unfortunately, on that defensive side of the ball with that kind of money. If he proves it that he can, then why not bring him back for one more year? I'm going to ask you one final question. It's the question that Frank Reich is going to get 100 times once the season starts. One, who's going to be the starter week one? Is it going to be Bryce Young or Andy Dalton? And are they going to keep 3 quarterbacks with Matt Corral?
I say yes to the 3 quarterbacks. I like having Matt Corral there as almost a athletic duplicate of what Bryce Young is. They're very similar skill sets. Obviously, I think Bryce Young has a lot more upside, and there's even questions about Matt Corral getting traded, but I like him there as somebody who is going to run a similar offense. I still think it's Bryce Young starting week one. Nothing against Andy Dalton. He's a capable starter in this league, but I think him coming to Carolina is an opportunity to mentor Bryce Young, to mentor Matt Corral as well, a guy who maybe it feels like his last chance to really prove himself if there's already trade rumors. But if I'm the Carolina Panthers, you went up and you moved heaven and earth, like I said, to go get Bryce Young. If he's not the starter week one, Andy Dalton in there, yeah, I understand it, but that will probably be 6 weeks max, and then you get Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about what they did in the offseason. Like, you got Andy, you're okay. You don't have to push Bryce. You don't have to hurry him. But I think, like we talked about earlier, like he's so smart that he's going to be okay week 1, maybe even week 2, like if need be. But you feel safe with Andy. Tom Hannifan from Believe Sports. We appreciate you coming on Shaw Sports Live, buddy.
Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.